So long I carried the weight of my past, crippled by burdens like stones on my back. Thought I had fallen too far from your grace, but you came and showed me the way. When I was lost, soul searching, you were the ground beneath my feet. When I was blind and bare, you were the eyes so I could see. When the smoke was rising up, you were the air that I could breathe. You gave me hope, you gave me something to believe. Now I'm alive and born again, rescued from the grip of sin. God, your love came crashing in and pulled me out of the fire. I'm a survivor. All I can see are the fields of your grace. Wherever I run, you're leading the way. You shook the shackles off my feet. I found redemption on my knees. You gave me hope, you gave me something to believe. Now I'm alive and born again, rescued from the grip of sin. God, your love came crashing in and pulled me out of the fire. I'm a survivor. You're my God, you're my fighter, you make me a survivor. You're my God, you're my fighter, you make me a survivor. You're my God, you're my fighter, you make me a rescued from the grip of sin. God, came crashing in, pulled me out of the fire. Now I'm alive and born again, rescued from the grip of sin. God, came crashing in and pulled me out of the fire. I'm a survivor. All right, well, you turn around, at least turn in a circle and shake a hand. Say hello, good to see you.
So, I'm taking George's shift this afternoon because he's taking shift for dairy.
Okay,
So,
that's good.
this Friday? Yeah.
Morning. Got them ears
I'm blowing all the way around.
He didn't lower the ears, he raised his hand.
You know, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Is anybody coming with him?
God, man. I'll text you.
Send me a text about Wednesday, Thursday.
Okay.
Amen. Give him a hand this morning. Thank you for being here this morning, and so excited to get to be here and to get to share this morning all that God's laid on my heart. Just like the song says, there's no place I'd rather be than hearing your love and hearing your presence, and that's where we'll be today. This Wednesday night, I'm going to share a message, and I think it's going to be good for us. It's called God, my plate is full and my heart is broken. Have you ever been there before where you said, oh man, there's just too much going on, God, for anything else to happen? Or God, I'm already broken. This can't be going on now. I remember in 2012 when I lost my grandfather, right after that, I got asked to speak at an event. And one of the things I preached on that night was God is close to the brokenhearted. And that your tears aren't in vain. And so I'm going to share a little bit of that this Wednesday night. You be here at 6:30 Wednesday nights. It's been such a blessing. We've been enjoying meeting together. We've had good crowds and just a good time here in the Lord. So looking forward to that. But I'm looking forward to today also. Today we're talking about taking aim. And if we're going to point at anything today, let's point at the heart of God. We can do a lot of good things. They can play a lot of good songs. But you know what? If we're going to do anything as a church, let's make it the heart of God. Let's get it in our sights. Let's see what happens if we just put all our focus and all our efforts on Him. So let's do this. Ushers, if you come forward this morning to receive this morning's offering, let's do that. If you're a guest of ours, you just be blessed today. Don't think we want anything from you or need anything from you. If you want to give, bless you for it. But God is the God of the increase. Amen. Let's pray. God, I love you. Lord, I just don't want to be anywhere else but you and love you and your presence, God. Lord, today, just take anything that's burdening with us right now, God, anything that's keeping us from you, help us just to wash that away for a little while and just get our eyes on you. Lock eyes on the target and take aim, God. Lord, anything that's coming against us is not as strong as that which is for us. And if you're for us, who can be against us, God? And Lord, so I ask you to come in power today. Come in presence today, God. Burn out any desire that I have to bring forth all the desires that you have. Bless this offering, God. Use it to build your kingdom. And let us enjoy our time with you this morning. In your name I pray. Amen.
we stood before you as judge, your judgment is peace. Your judgment is love. Your judgment is grace and mercy, God. It's not wrath. So we bow to you, God. We lift your name up. We magnify you, God. We take aim at your heart this morning. We worship you. We worship you. In Jesus' name.
Kids, you can be dismissed. Adults, you can be seated. I don't know about you, but I want more of that. I woke up this morning and I just woke up discouraged, and I just felt like it's the devil trying to discourage me, to get me down. And when you wake up that way, you don't really have any reason. You're just like, man, I feel the way that I feel. And then, when I got here and I started seeing people, I started feeling better and just started really just thankful for what God's done here and for letting our life be here. And then, man, all the seats just started filling up, which was, I'll never know how the attendance is going to be. And then, man, God just starts pouring stuff out. And I've just been praying so hard for power. Not my power, just the power of God. Because I just don't want nothing else. I don't want to be in another place. I don't want to be in another church. I've been in churches. I've been in other places. But it's rare that you really see the power of God fall on something. And for us to see it in the way that we've seen it over the last few minutes, I hate to say it's rare, but it's sometimes. And I'm just excited that it's happening. Jeremy Rochelle, good to see you, buddy. Jeremy had brain surgery this week, guys. And God's been doing something in him. We've been praying for him, and he's here. Thank God for that. It's powerful. And I think friendship. We've been talking more and more over the last couple of weeks. Oh, man. All right. Whew. I don't know what to do. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I did. Stand up, Slinky, Dan. I'm sorry.
So Friday morning, while I was at work, I called Noah and everyone. She was having some severe pain in the right side, no idea what was going on. And so we went to the hospital, they ran every test we could run, and I just fought battles like that. I just got on my knees there in that hospital room and just cried out for that. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what was happening. And they ran every test they could, everything came back perfectly normal. For pain by the time we left the hospital, pain was completely gone. I just did that myself. Yeah. No idea what happened, all the tests came back clear, no idea what was on. That kind of stuff like that, that's just, that's right.
Amen. Give it the glory. Is there one more I'd like to testify this morning before we get started? Give me a minute to get my stuff together here. Anybody else? All right. You know, every time I take your hands this morning, it's just, I really didn't know what to call this message, and then it finally it come together like this. But I know this: if you're to take aim, you must be reminded which direction you are pointing and what is your target. Because it doesn't matter what kind of weapon that you have, it doesn't matter what kind of direction that what destination you want to be at. If you don't know where to point yourself, you're never going to get there. And you're never going to get what's coming at you. Too many times, we're trying to point one bow at too many targets. I'm telling you, if you got 5 things going on at one time, you can't give none of them your best. And the devil loves to do that. We get up in the morning and we have our day, and it's all spread out before us, and we got everything in every direction, and you're not good at anything when that's happening. You know, if I'm trying to spend time with April and I'm thinking about 5 things at work, you know what? She's not getting anything from me. She's not getting my best. And I mean, she can tell you, I'm like that. I've got a million things going on in my head. She's talking. Sometimes I'm hearing, sometimes I'm not. She knows. Yeah, we got her. She's not going to amen, but she might know. I might know me up here. But we're missing the mark, and we task ourselves with too much, and we can't find the time to fit it all in. And our mind is actually exhausted from juggling too many responsibilities, too many ideas, and too many requirements. And it's time that you gotta, if you want to hit the mark, you gotta be focused. I said this Wednesday night, if narrow is the gate and narrow is the way, only if you find it, then you're gonna have to be intentional in what you do. You're not gonna stumble through the way. You're not going to be able to just throw a prayer up in the air and see if it sticks. If narrow is the gate, then more often than not, you're going to miss it. Because it's small. And we think that we can live our life for Christ unintentionally, if that's even a word. If we think we can live our life that way, we're missing the mark. And we're going to need what? We're going to need His Word to guide us, because His Word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. And so I'm going to need it to find the narrow gate. I was awakened on August 15th in the early morning after having a dream. And in the dream, I was here and I was preaching, and I was quoting Jeremiah, and this is a loose translation of that. But I was saying, it's like a fire inside. I want to contain it, but I cannot. In this part of Jeremiah, it's chapter 20, and he's been beaten for doing what the Lord has asked him to do. And he was prophesying, and they chained him and they beat him. And his flesh is actually, if you can imagine, it's actually hurting. Imagine that every time that you do God's will, it don't always feel good. If you read the Bible, more oftentimes than not, it doesn't feel good to the flesh, because the spirit and flesh are in battle with one another. And the devil would love to attack your flesh and make you feel bad. Look at the story of Job. Job is there, and he is doing exactly 100% what God has called him to do. Yet he's broke out with boils all over his body, and all of his family dies, and all of his cattle are stolen away, and things are bad. And his wife says, just curse God and die, because I can't bear to look at you in such pain. And in that moment, he doesn't do it. Why? Because his flesh is in battle, but his spirit is secure. And in this part of Jeremiah, like I said, he's been beaten. And this is what it says. Jeremiah 20, verse 9. But if I say, in other words, there's a part of me that wants to say, but if I say I will not mention His word or speak anymore in His name, His word is in my heart like a fire. A fire shut up in my bones. And I'm weary of holding it in. Indeed, I cannot do it. It's done fell on me. It's too heavy now. The Spirit of God's done been on my life too much. I can't hold it anymore. And I know how He feels, because at this moment in my life, to turn back would be utter despair. I've done felt Him. I've done seen Him. This morning what you've experienced is not the norm. So you've been blessed with it, and you've witnessed it so that you'll crave it again, because once you taste and see that the Lord is good, you cannot get that taste out of your mouth. It's like, man, I just want another moment like that. And I can guarantee you that every Sunday that I come in here, from now on, I will crave what just happened. It reminded me of this. It reminded me how I love the Lord, and how I've given my life to His direction. And in the thought of the ship, like we talked about last week, my sails are spread, and He is the wind. I know this, that I no longer study my own direction, because He is my direction. He is the captain of my ship and the author of my story. And before He asks, I've already set in my heart that the answer must always be, and will always be, yes. But it's going to cost you something, Matt. But I can't bear the thought of not saying yes to whatever it is He wants. Yes, there's a very human side of me. There are times that I feel the urge to take the wheel when the waters get choppy. There's a time when the path is uncertain, when I feel like I'm praying and He's not responding. It's then that I try to remind myself that He's the captain. I remind myself that He's always brought me back to calm waters. Oh yes, there's been storms. But that's not the time when I should take the wheel. That's actually the time that I should abandon it and let Him have it. He's a better captain than I am. I'm not real good at fishing, and I'm definitely not real good at being a captain, so He needs to go on, right? He needs to do His job, and I need to let Him. And you know what? So when it gets rough, you know what? When it gets rough, I can't change the weather. But He can. aim for the Father's heart. We're going to aim high. Let's don't shoot at just heaven. Let's don't shoot at just more knowledge of the Word. Let's don't shoot at just trying to understand worship better. No, let's aim for His heart. Let's go for God's heart. How many times do we get in church and we say, you know what, I'm not stopping until I see the heart of God. For some reason, we got there this morning. And it took one person's obedience and then another person's obedience. And it's funny how obedience works because it opens up doors for things to happen that couldn't happen if people would say yes. See, I can teach you greater theology. I can teach you important comparisons of God's Word. But if I were to teach you the best thing, if I were to leave you with something that would not just shape you, but it would not just shape your thinking, but it would change your life, you know what I would teach you? I would teach you persistence and purpose, passion and pursuit. And I would teach you to seek the Lord, know the Lord, and be known by the Lord. If you would learn that, nothing else would matter. If you would make Him your aim, if He would be the center of your focus, if you would put a target on Him and just say, God, I don't know a lot about churchy things. God, I don't know a lot about the Bible. I'm reading and I'm trying to understand and I'm trying to grasp all these stories. And those are great. But you know what? Unless we come in here and we aim at the Father's heart and we say, you know what? I'm not going to stop till I see God. None of the other stuff matters. I know a lot of people who know about the Bible, and I know a few people who know the Lord intimately. One thing that we have to do if we're going to take aim is we got to stop serving the process over the person. The process over the person. It's like this. It's like, oh, are you a Christian? Oh, I go to church. Yes. But do you know Him? I sing His songs. Yes. But do you know His heart? You know, I've been part of a lot of church events. Oh, I can tell you, services where we went and people that we heard sing and things that seemed so great at the time, fun times, services, concerts, guest speakers. You know what? And I've experienced a lot of church things, but you know what? I've only experienced moments of revival. Isn't that weird? That you've been to church and you've only seen revival a few times. I'm telling you that we can either seek entertainment or we can seek encounter. Entertainment or encounter. This week, sad to say, Marty Simpson, Hillsong Church, maybe you know who that is, but he's a writer for Hillsong Church. You know, Hillsong's blown up worship. We sing some of their songs. I've always just really loved their music and loved what they do. And Marty Simpson, for them, he just decided, you know what, I don't believe this anymore. I don't believe the things I'm saying. I went to CCLI, which is where all the rights to all the Christian music is. And I searched his name. You know how many songs the man has written about Jesus? 307. 307 songs, and you're missing the mark. What was he aiming at? See, if you don't know what you're aiming at, you don't know where you're trying to hit. And I would think, listen to his songs, I felt the Lord's presence on his songs. Jason, how many songs have we done? Probably that Marty Sampson has done. Bunches and bunches. And how many times have we sit there and said, man, this is so rich and this is so good. And then realize, this guy, he has more questions than he has answers. We can seek entertainment or we can seek encounter. I want to turn our hearts back to seeking. I don't want the things of God to be our focus. I want the heart of God to be our aim. There's a difference. And we can get in this great big social club that we've got here, and we can hang out, and we can either be iron and sharpen iron, or we can just think of good things to do. There ain't nothing wrong with them. They're good. Let's support them. Let's do them. Hey, let's encourage one another. Oh, you had a good week. I've had a good week. How are you? Oh, I'm blessed. We can do that, or we can go for an encounter, which is going to be intentional, and we're going to have to focus, and we're going to have to give up some things, and we're going to have to cut away some things so that we can allow His presence to come on us in a new way. And there's going to be some things that maybe I used to do that I don't do anymore because why? As I come into His light, all the dark places, all the things on me that I thought I needed to hide are exposed. All right. Jeremiah 29, verse 10. This is what the Lord says, when 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will come to you and fulfill my good promise to bring you back to this place. So the Lord has allowed them, or He's about to allow them to go into slavery under Babylon for 70 years. He said, for I know, and we love this verse, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And how many people have spoke that over your own eternal life, but you forget about verse 10 and verse 13 and 12 that's coming up. We want to pick pieces and hang on to them. And there's more to the story. Verse 12, then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. So I want to give everybody 11, for I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper, plans to harm you. But if I don't tell you about 13, you will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. Verse 11 doesn't matter. I love that verse. I've given it to teenagers through the years to encourage them and walk with them. But you know what? If I can teach you to do 13, 11 takes care of itself, because it doesn't matter where I go, where I go, what I've got. I will just make it my aim. See, God is allowing the pain of captivity to restore the relationship back to Him. Imagine that. He's working through pain instead of pleasure. He's working through breakdown instead of blessing. Why? Because when we're hurting, all of a sudden our senses are so much more aware than when we're under the blessing. We want the blessing. I want the blessing. I want it to come. I want my family to prosper. I don't ever want to be sick. I want to pray against all those things. I want to believe that I don't have to walk in that. But you know what? It's funny that in the middle of those things is the times that I feel it the most. When I'm wore out, when I've given up, about giving up, when I'm laying down, when I said, I don't know anymore, God, I don't know. He said, that's fine, you don't have to know. I know. Just know me. Isn't it funny that He's always the answer to the question? God, I don't know why this is happening. Don't worry. No, don't know. Can you trust me long enough to see it fulfilled? See, pain is almost always part of the process. In this passage, God wanted holiness more than happiness, so He brought slavery to restore salvation. Mind blown. God doesn't share the throne of our life. He actually demands to be first. We love to use Jeremiah 29:11 to declare that God has a purpose and a plan for our life, and praise the Lord, He does. But it's not at the sacrifice of Jeremiah 29:13. He won't sit on. He won't sit on. It says He's a jealous God. What's He jealous of? He's jealous of you. He wants all of it. He wants all of it. He doesn't care that you know stuff about the Bible. He knows all of it. He doesn't care if you go out and do this or go out and do that. If you forget none of the rest of it. He's saying He will not be found in a casual relationship. Half-hearted seeking will not find Him. And the sad thing is, many people are content with casual pursuit. He's not found there. He's not found when just I'll go to church when I feel like it. I'll love Him when I want to love Him. And I'll be honest, I don't even think church is the most important thing, and I'm glad I came today. Praise the Lord. But you know what? I want you to have a revelation that, you know what? My pursuit has to be Him wholeheartedly. And you know what? When that happens, is it doesn't matter what Kevin thinks at that moment about me. It doesn't matter if Brett thinks that I pursued this service. It doesn't matter. All that matters, all is in vain unless God shows up. And the problem is, it's leaving us empty. And we never go all in, and we never find Him. And He's only going to be found when we seek Him with all our heart. Let me tell you something. The fruit of true relationship with God is freedom. It is. Because if you don't have to worry about anything, you're free. When David would play his harp for Saul, Saul's tormenting spirit would leave. And it wasn't Saul's relationship that provided Saul's freedom. It was the anointing of David. Your relationship with the Lord will actually produce fruit that others will feed on. If you don't think my kids are eating off the fruit that I'm eating, that I'm preparing, and I'm giving to them, then you're crazy. They're blessed because of the blessing that's on them. They get to enjoy it. They lay down at night, and all of their needs are taken care of. They have parents. Good grief. We say more prayers before bedtime than anybody I know. I got a last night I pray for Hosanna, I pray for Elijah, and then when I lay down, it says, "You gonna pray for us?" And I'm like, man, I said 3 prayers. I don't know if there's a tally here, but I feel like I'm winning. It's like, I pray, and then when I get up in the morning, Elijah always tells me this, no matter what time it is, he says, "Dad, wake me up before you leave." And the only thing I do for Elijah when I wake him up is I pray for him. And it is not heaven fire, all this stuff. It is very basic stuff. But before I leave him in the morning, I pray, and before I leave April, I pray. And that's our routine. That's that's how we do it. I'm not telling you how to do it. I'm just saying that is what we do, because your relationship with the Lord will produce fruit others will feed on. And you know what? I would rather eat the fruit of righteousness that comes down, passed from the Father through me to them, than to eat what the world's offering, which will be, it will be deadly to them. Hey, if we haven't learned anything in Christianity, is you can't take every fruit. Okay. Paul and Silas are in the middle of prison. They've been beaten. They've been chained. They're surrounded. And in their pain, they begin to sing praises to the Lord. See, it was their song in pain, not triumph, that proved to be the most powerful. And you said, I don't feel like worshiping. That's when you need to do it. That's when you're hungry. It's when I don't feel like it. Your song in pain is more powerful than your song in triumph. And they sing it out of a desire for relationship, not out of an expectation for freedom. They did not know that the walls were about to come down. They sing it because they loved the Lord. And it's that purity of heart that drove them to their freedom. And I'll show you another part of this. Their song of praise in their season of persecution brought about the power that tore down the prison. And the power came, listen to this now, not to set them free, even though all the prisoners could have walked free. Their power came to set the guard and his family free. That power didn't come to set him out of prison, because if it was, as soon as the walls fell, it had just left. It actually said, he said, don't worry, guard. I know you're about to kill yourself. You're about to end your life. But what I'm telling you is this power, it hasn't come on to set us free. All of us prisoners are still here because all the rest of the prisoners were so in shock and all, they couldn't move. So they didn't run when the walls fell. And so what happens is that Paul is able to lead them to Christ. So the power didn't come to set Paul free. The power actually came to set the guard free. And we put all our focus, all our effort and attention on honoring, worshiping, and knowing God. You know what he does? He will tear down not only physical boundaries, he will destroy spiritual ones. Freedom from prison was an afterthought to Paul's praise. Freedom from sin was God's purpose. God brought Paul to prison to bring the guard and his family out of it. You understand what I'm saying? We say, why am I having to go through this? Why is it so difficult right now? God brought Paul to prison to bring the guard out of it. If Paul's pathway was for the guard, it wasn't for Paul. And you say, oh, that was tough though. Paul had to take a beating. But you know what? Paul would have volunteered for a beating if he knew it meant salvation. And he did, time and time again. Half the difficulties that we go through may not even be about us. That may be God's way of using us to bring someone else to him. And when he looks at you and he knows that you can sustain it, that's why you're having to go through. Paul didn't walk out of prison because the walls fell. He was set free the next day by the governing officials. The collapse of the prison was proof of who had the power, not Paul's plan of escape. Isn't that interesting? We look at that and think, God set him free out of prison. No, he didn't. They set him free the next day. God set the guard free out of sin. Let me show you this. Hosea chapter 6. Come, let us return to the Lord. It is he who has torn us. He will heal us. He has wounded us. He will bind us up. In just a couple of days, or 3 at the most, he will set us on our feet again to live in his kindness. Oh, that we might know the Lord. Let us press on to know him. And he will respond to us as surely as the coming of the dawn or the rain of early spring. It tells us, again, that God has allowed our pain to restore our relationship. But after a time, in his kindness, he's going to restore it. And then I love verse 3. It says, let us press on to know him. Press on is defined this way. It says it's to continue to do something, especially in a determined way. So let us continue to seek him in a determined way. Oh man, when you're determined, you go straight at it. When you're determined, you run through that door. If you're determined. When you're determined, you'll fight. You'll strive. Why? Because you're determined. You've made up your mind. You're enthusiastic about what you pursue. You're energized for the battle. So, if we're going to do that, what do we got to do? We got to put a pause on life. We got to reduce the distractions until we can get the heart back. We got to quit the pursuit of other things until we know we're truly living in his presence. isn't giving something to the glory of God, you know what? I cut it off. Why? Because less distractions allow me to take aim. Can't be all around. Where's I took the bow and I started doing like this? All y'all be ducking. We wouldn't know where we're going to hit, where to go. And I want to shoot a straight line, hit stepping, and all these things are going on. But you can't, I'm telling you, man, when people are yelling at you and all things are coming from all sides, have you ever tried to do something with all your kids talking to you at one time? I kid you not, we will get in our van, we'll drive from here to my house, it's 18 minutes from here to my house. I know that, I don't know why, but I do. It's 18 minutes. And we'll get in there, and April said, I got to call so-and-so. And she'll get on the phone, and I think both of my kids think that's the time to ask her questions. And it's not just driving her crazy, it's driving me crazy. And then I get into that thing where I'm like, everybody shut up back there. You can't hear anything. And I'm yelling over the top of them yelling while she's trying to be on the phone. It's distracting. And if you don't think that's how the devil works, then you're wrong. And it doesn't have to be bad things. It has to be other things. If you've ever coached, you can easily identify the days that the team's heart's just not in. It's a poor display of lifeless motion and mechanical behavior. And I wonder if that's what our relationship with God is. A poor display of lifeless motion and mechanical behavior. But I made it here. That's great. But do you know it? Mark 7, he replied, Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you hypocrites, as it is written, these people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. I don't want to be in any relationship where you guys talk me up, but you really don't love me. And God doesn't want it either. Look, they worship me in vain. Their teachings are merely human rules. You have let go of the commands of God and are holding on to human traditions. Oh my goodness, American church, wake up! Sang a song for you, Lord, but you didn't come. We did a dance for you, Lord, but you weren't there. We can put on the best show in town. We can get people here based off of our show. Randy, just get a few more lights, a little strobe, and maybe a little ball to hang down, disco ball. We'll play songs, that make everybody feel good. And we'll get fired up. We'll get you. Instead of these carpeted floors, we'll get hardwood floors, and we'll tear the whole front of the church off and make it look like an industrial building. And we'll do all these things, and there ain't nothing wrong with those things. But you know what? If we're not aiming for the heart of God, then we're missing the mark. And it ain't going to matter if we fill up every seat in here. If we don't go for God, then we've not gone for anything. And you know what? At the end of time, I have to answer for what happens here and what's spoken from this word. And I cannot bear the thought of answering and saying, well, we gave it a good show. Churches are full of traditions. We begin things with pure intentions. Our good intentions over time, though, become distractions. And we get used to doing things a certain way, and we lose sight of why we began them in the first place. We are left with heartless displays of mechanical behavior in order to do just enough to satisfy some sort of minimal expectation. What's the least I can do and still love you? A lot of what we do feels more like treating symptoms than diagnosing the illness. Many of what we do is to help people overcome the symptoms of spiritual anemia, other than teaching them to seek the Lord with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength. When we seek Him with everything, it's hard to get distracted. When we're focused, it's hard to be deceived. Think about that. You got problems. He said, oh, my life's tough, Pastor. And I said, well, why is your life tough? Well, I still got these things over here in the fire. I'm still over here. Pastor, I'm still drinking. I'm still kind of doing our thing. I kind of go out with my buddies on Friday night, and we say, oh, quit drinking. Quit going out with your buddies. Those are distractions, When the truth is, sell out to Jesus. Love Him supremely. And the things that you used to desire, you won't desire anymore. And if He makes the change, you'll keep the change. But if I give you the behavior, you'll go back to what feels good. Minimal expectation, diagnosing symptoms over the illness. When I take aim, I remove all distractions. And when I do that, I hit the spot every time. We forget that God is a real being who desires real relationship. We spend a lot of time teaching and learning church and bypassing relationship with the Lord. Church, as we do it today, is something that was meant to draw us together as one body, yet it has potentially separated the body from the head. It was meant to be good. We'll gather together. We all love the Lord. We'll all worship the Lord. But what happened is over time, we got used to traditions, and we forgot about Jesus. And what we did was we separated the body from the head. And the body can't work without the head. And I hate to think this, but I wonder, could we have church this morning without the Lord? I sadly think many times that we do. The body, it no longer recognizes what the head does. And see, if you notice this, if I turn this way, my body will go this way. And if I turn this way, my body will go this way. But if you remove the head, the body doesn't know where to go. And I think a lot of church bodies, are operating in a way where they're removed from the head and they're just roaming, waiting on direction. Church services are best when the body is in sync with the head, like this morning, praise the Lord. But we've faked it so long that we've actually started to believe it ourselves. Oh, it was good today. Randy sang this wonderful song and I really enjoyed it. It was good. Oh, I like when he sings this or that. It was good. That song was pretty good today. It's no meaning. But you know what? Lives aren't changed by songs and sermons. And that's what I do for a living. Songs and sermons. But you know what? They're not changed by that. And I always pray. I say, Lord, come with power, because unless you come, what I do is in vain, and it really doesn't make sense for me to be there. And I leave a lot of times, and I leave frustrated and distracted after the service, and I'm driving home, and I'm asking, what could I have done differently, God? I'm asking you to move every time I want you to move. And too many times when dealing with God, our questions become our theology. What starts off as looking for answers becomes reasons why we don't believe the Lord will work in our life. Oh, he can do it, but I don't believe he will. Oh, he has the ability, but I don't think he'll move this way. He didn't do it last time. And over time, we ask so many questions that our theology of what we believe about Christ actually becomes our questions. We need so bad. Who's the person in here who says, I need to know the reason why? If you're going to ask me to do something, Pastor, I need to know the reason why. I'm sorry I'm setting you up a little bit this morning. We need so bad to understand the question that we're not looking to the answer. And we want to know things like, why does bad things happen to good people, Pastor? I need to know, because it hinges on what I believe. Why do good things happen to bad people? Sometimes that's harder than the other thing. When you see somebody who lives like the devil and gives blessing after blessing, it'll frustrate you. When you're over there digging for change to pay for your McDonald's, you know what I'm saying? And you see them because you're just heaping on the blessing. You're like, well, why? Because God blessed him the way that he does. And I was listening to Steve Furtick this week, and he said this. You don't need a reason. You need a revelation. Boy, it hit me like an asteroid coming out of the room. Just hit me on top of the head. I mean, it blew me down. You don't need a reason. You need a revelation. We spend our time trying to understand the reasons why God is doing something when we should be seeking the revelation of who God is. Quit asking me questions. They don't matter. I'm not saying God can't answer them. I'm just saying they can't be more important than him. When you have a true revelation of who God is, you don't have to know the reason. Can I show you a biblical example of that this morning? Isaiah chapter 6. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord. I think you can stay right there on that verse. High and exalted, seated on his throne, and the train of his robe filled the temple. I love this description. Above him were seraphim, each with 6 wings. Can you imagine a being with 6 wings? And it says, with 2 wings they covered their face, and with 2 wings they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. Which is interesting in itself, because if you're covering your face and you're covering your feet, how do you know what direction you're going in? But they did that, and they're flying, and they were calling to one another, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty, the whole earth is full of his glory. Let me tell you guys, this is not some mythical story. This is something that really happened. And at the sound of their voices, the doorpost and the threshold shook, and the temple was filled with smoke. Isaiah has a revelation. He says, woe to me, I cried, I'm ruined. For I'm a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips. And my eyes have seen the King of the Lord Almighty. See, when you realize how good God is, you'll realize how bad you are. And you'll realize how clean he is and how pure he is. You'll realize how good you are. And this is what Isaiah does. He has this revelation. It says, then one of the seraphim flew to me, and with a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with the tongs from the altar. Now I want to tell you the symbolicness of this is anything that's on the altar is holy. So when he took the coal from the altar, it was holy. And he touches his lips. And with it he touched my mouth, and he said, see, this has touched your lips, your guilt is taken away. He said, then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send, and who will go for me? And I said, here I am, send me. See, what he didn't ask questions. He didn't say, where do you want me to go? He didn't say, why are you doing this, God? He didn't say, why are you allowing me to see you? He just said, I don't know what it is, but whatever it is what I want. I'm telling you, man, if you had a knockdown experience with God, the where and the why doesn't matter. I just want to be where you are. When we experience something like this morning, so sets it up for such an easy way to preach this sermon. When we experience something like this morning, I don't really want anything else. I don't have anything to give you just like that. I wish I could make it happen. I wish I could go over there every time and I wanted the Spirit to fall. I just flip this switch. Man, it just not falling. Things just get wrecked. But it's not like that. Once Isaiah had experienced the Lord, he did not need a reason as to what the Lord wanted. He just wanted to go for him. Revelation, it actually means to reveal. And once we have seen the heart of God, he becomes the reason. You know, talk about revelation. When you were a kid and your dad asked you to do something, you didn't dare ask for the reason why. And this is why. Because you had a revelation of who your father was, and you knew what was expected. We need a revelation of who our Father is. Some of us are letting our need for a reason prevent us from obtaining a revelation of who it is you serve. You're waiting on God to explain everything to you step by step so you can have the courage to move. And the reality is, if he showed it all to you, you couldn't handle it. He's actually covering you so much so much when you're unaware, that if you knew all that he had tried to stop, if you knew all that was coming against you and that he had stopped, you would actually probably collapse. There's a lot of things I feel like get filtered out about him. Revelation answers the questions that you're not even sure how to ask. When you see it, your faith is made sight. It's like this. I can describe, if y'all have never been to my house, I can describe it to you. I can tell you that we have a pond. I can tell you that we have a house. I can tell you all these things. I break it off. And you would begin to build this image in your mind. And you start thinking about it. But you know, once you saw it, you would realize, number one, that everything you thought about wasn't correct. But you know what? Then you would know exactly what my house looked like. That's revelation of God. I don't know. I don't know, God. I don't know. I don't know. But you know what? Revelation reveals the details. I can describe to you, and there will be gaps in my explanation of how you perceive my words, and they will be flawed. But once you see it, any misconception is cleared up. You have experienced it, and all the questions are gone. You need to see the Lord for yourself this morning. My final thing, if you're going to take aim in your life, you're going to have to avoid the distraction. Life is constantly moving schedules and busy, and time seems limited. I believe the Bible is very clear when it states this right here. He says, be still and know I am God. I'll be exalted among the nations. I'll be exalted among the earth. That's the first part. Be still and know that I am God. We imagine, if we're to imagine that we can know him, but yet we never slow down, we'll never have a revelation of who he is. The revelation is honestly is this. It's revealed in quiet places. Why? Because whispers can only be heard when everything else is silent. You know what? If God is your focus, and you make him the main thing, he doesn't have to yell for you to hear him. Because everything else is not allowed in the space that he fills. You know what I'm saying? If I tell everybody in here to get out, and only me and April in here, it doesn't matter where she goes. She can whisper and I'll hear her. You can't follow the voice of God amidst the crowd of other voices calling your name. You've got to ignite that pursuit. Do you remember, for those of you who are married, maybe you've married longer than I have, maybe you've married less than I have, it may be easier. But don't you remember how passionately you pursued your mate? At least I hope you did. Me and April started dating when I was 17. And I'm really good at dating. You know, I did it a bunch. Sometimes you're either good because you do it or you're bad because you do it. Either chasing a concept of Christianity, and we can start chasing a holy God. Worship me when you come this morning. What I'm saying is if you haven't taken aim, now's the time to take aim. Fix your focus, and you'll hit your target. Let's stand together this morning. I've seen some great things already today, but what I'm saying is you can't leave here and be focused on other things. You can't leave here and still be serving two different things. You can't hit two targets, one in the corner and one in this corner with one bow. And you got one bow. And it's drawn back, and you're aiming at something. But what do you want to hit? Because you aim at the things that you want to hit. And you just fire randomly when it doesn't matter. And a lot of my life has been spent firing randomly at 5 targets with one arrow. Doesn't make sense. It's quite insanity, actually. But what I would say is this, is that if you can get your focus on one target, you can get that one target. So why don't we make that one target the heart of God? And then the whole journey that comes with that can be the journey with Him. As they sing this morning, the heart's open just to say, fix your focus. You can start new today, and you get it all together.
Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I live, the fountain I drink from.
thank you for everyone that's here this morning. I pray they've got your presence. I pray that they've done business with you today, God, and they know that they're aiming for the Father's heart, God. Lord, help us to see your glory just come, Lord, in ways that we never expected. Jesus, we thank you for that. Move in power. In your name I pray. Amen. I got a couple of announcements. Tonight at my house at 6 o'clock, live group. And if you need to know directions, you can get with April or you get with Brett. They'll tell you how to get there. And the menu is party foods. So you want to be there for that. And bring a chair. Because we're going to be outside some after it cools off. All right. What is it you do? Finger Foods at Manny's house tonight on Lakewood Drive. Be there for that. It's going to be awesome. Again, I will be teaching Wednesday night. And I will be teaching to God. My plate is full and my heart is broken. Maybe that's what you need this week. Just be praying about that and pray that the Lord would move there. Be careful going out. We know we've got a quick kind of turnaround time. I went too long today, but I think it'll be all right. So thank you for being here.